Okay, folks, it's a beautiful and glorious day here, sunny, nice, and I'm going to do a stack and a half. All right, so here we go. First up, E.T.A. Hoffman, or E.T.A. Hoffman, however you want to pronounce it. The Golden Pot and Other Tales. These are famous tales of the esoteric and mystical and all kinds of strange happenings. You have the Sandman, Master Flea, Princess Brambilla, a bunch of great stuff. Hoffman is always entertaining and fascinating to read. He's a really neat author, especially if you like fantastic events and stuff. And he's a good writer. He structures the prose really well. Really like Hoffman. Great stuff. Next up is an anthology of Paul Valéry's work. It includes his dialogue, some poems, and also some prose works like Monster Test, The Method of Leonardo da Vinci, Poetry and Abstract Thought, This Man in the Seashell, which is an incredible, more like a philosophical and kind of scientific exploration of the structure of the seashell and men and mankind and stuff. And it's really fascinating stuff. And then you have the poems at the end and some dialogues. His dialogues are pretty good too. The poets are pretty good. The poems are pretty good too. Charms, and also Jeanne Park, which is Young Fate. It's really neat. Huge fanatic of Valéry. Okay, next up is a medieval work. Very influential, very popular. Boethius, The Consolation of Philosophy. He wrote this work under a death sentence. This was at the end of the Roman Empire and the Goths, the Visigoths and the Ostrogoths coming in and not into Rome proper. And he gets, the way he was executed was pretty terrible. And this is a very inspirational work to read. I highly recommend it. Basically, how useful philosophy can be in such dire times or circumstances. It can be really helpful. Okay, next up is a volume of early Christian lives from Penguin. There's a famous painting of St. Anthony being tormented by demons. Look at those demons. Aren't they wonderful? One's gnawing at his, at his lapel of his coat, and the other one is about ready to beat him with a stick, and he's defending himself. And the other one's at his feet. Amazing stuff. Great art. That's medieval art. I think it's, it's a detail from a 15th century manuscript. Okay, this includes some interesting lives of Antony by Athanasius. Also, Paul of Thebes by Jerome. Malchus by Jerome. Jerome was and also The Life of Benedict by Gregory the Great. Of course, Benedict being the great monastic revolutionizer and stuff. Monasteries. Good stuff. Okay, next up is a excellent short Henry James novel called The Spoils of Poynton. And the novel is pretty spot on about what this book is about. The spoils of Poynton and his estate. And a mother not being too happy with her son's choice of wife. And then things go bad and a quarrel ensues. And Henry James is great at family spats. He's really great at it. He's good at drama. But he doesn't necessarily whinge about it. But he's very good at it, delineating it. Okay, next up is a book by Italo Calvino, Why Read the Classics. A good book, really an introduction into some books that a lot of people should read, and because they're very good. And authors like Borges, Hemingway, Montale, Gada, that awful mess on the Villa, whatever it was, about the murder mystery that I have over there. I forgot the title. I'm getting old. The World is an Artichoke. Pasternak and the Revolution. Conrad's Captains. Mark Twain, the Man That Corrupted Hadleyburg. Gustave Flaubert. Charles Dickens, of course. And Robinson Crusoe, and also Stendhal and others. It's a good pathway book. Okay, next up is an excellent volume that contains 4 short novels by R.K. Narayan, an Indian author. And that won't go. And Swami and Friends, The Bachelor of Arts, The Dark Room, The English Teacher. Basically, a group of young friends growing up with families, going through school, before school, and getting late in school and getting ready to approach adulthood. And they're very good novels, very entertaining, very serious, and funny at times. Narayan is very good. Okay, next up is a writer I always enjoy because he's a master of family dramas and marriages gone wrong, and we see that of course, in Effie Breese, which I've mentioned before. Effie Breese, yes. And these are short novels and other writings. And the short novels are A Man of Honor, Jenny Tribal, and The 18th of March. Again, the first 2 are, of course, about family matters, relationships, stuff like that. Again, he's a master. Theodore Fontaine is a master of domestic drama, domestic tragedy. It's really amazing how well he does with that. It's his wheelhouse, and he constantly goes into it. And the next volume contains the same thing. You have 2. This is a novel containing 2 novellas: The Woman Taken in Adultery, and The Poggenpool Family. I think once again we get into his wheelhouse of dealing with problems and tragic events between people and relationships and families, and sometimes outside of family. Good stuff. Domestic drama, his wheelhouse. Okay, next up is an outstanding book by Francis A. Yates, The Art of Memory. Sort of a history of treatises on the art of memory and how people treated memory and how they felt about it, going all the way back to classical sources from the Latin to the Greek, and then the art of memory in the Middle Ages, and then going into the Renaissance and Camilla's memory theater. And here's his memory theater. This is his memory theater, and I really can't get close enough to show you, but I can. And it covers the zodiac and some of the Greek gods too, which are part of the zodiac a little bit, and the planets and stuff. And here's his theater, and it's a universal theater. It's not just a theater for the world, but for the universe, and it's pretty neat stuff. I'm gonna fix this up. There we go. Okay, we get to the Renaissance, and then of course we get into Giordano Bruno and Raymond Lull, which are her some of the things that she's, and Flood's Memory Theater and Globe Theater, and John Dee, of course, who is very influential in that kind of thing. And it's really interesting stuff. Really interesting stuff. Next up is The Roots of Evil, Christopher Hibbert, once owned by Dr. David Harold Paley, MD. And basically, this is the social history of crime and punishment. And it's very good. It starts from the reformers, police reformers, law reformers, the age of elegance, the age of learning, and the age of chivalry, and how each of these ages approached this issue in different fashions. And goes into progress and palindrome, the sexual offender, police, prisons, capital punishment, etc. It's a really fascinating work. It's a historical overview of how it's changed throughout the years, and yet some things remain the same. Okay, next up is a voluminous work here. The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, Volume 1. Not the Rise and Fall, which I erroneously stated, I believe, 2 or 3 videos ago. And this is the first volume, and it starts from 180 AD to 390. It starts at 180 AD and goes to 395 AD. And this begins with the age of the Antoninus and such. And it's like 950 some pages. And it's strangely enough, it's a very quick read because it's very entertaining and you lose track of time. Gibbon is an outstanding expositor of history. I mean, the way he tells his history, it's sort of like a fireside chat kind of thing. He's very elegant. He's very, into details, but also into telling stories. And Gibbon is an excellent historian. Okay, next up is a volume, Selected Poems and Prefaces by William Wordsworth. I always want to put an S at the end of William after a William because of Wordsworth, that S there and all the W's, the wispy sound. And these are the selected poems. You got the Prelude, Lucy Gray, Tintern Abbey, of course, Peter Bell, which Byron made fun of. The Prelude, which has some beautiful moments and some wonderful passages, moving passages. And some of his older stuff, and a lot of his prefaces to his work, including the Prelude and the Recluse, and some of his letters. Interesting stuff. Okay, next up is a 2-volume work by George Battaglia called The Accursed Share, titled The Accursed Share, and it's basically on an essay on general economy. And Volume 1 is about consumption and about how different societies throughout history and with different political systems view consumption and how consumption is distributed. And it goes all the way to the Marshall Plan, which is an interesting thing because the Marshall Plan basically is a wartime thing, and it's also the beginning of modern liberalism. And I'm not talking about liberalism in the way that some cable news idiot would say it. I'm saying it in the way that, the state wants to take care of people, and they want to do it in a certain fashion, and they want it to be they want it to be they want to make sure certain standards are set and such, and certain people are not appeased, but things are taken care of in a suitable fashion. Now, does that mean that they have the best interest of everyone at mind? No, because even during the liberal era, there was even the great liberal era of FDR, it was fantastically a racist society at the time. And FDR himself was a pretty racist himself, but I don't want to go into that. But again, the Accursed Share is about all these things. Accursed Share Volumes 2 and 3, which is a huge tome. And this is the one about general economy. And Volume 2 is the history of eroticism, and Volume 3 is sovereignty. And Volume 2 is about how eroticism and sexuality and the human body is economized in a way structurally in societies. And Volume 3, of course, is about sovereignty and how it is created and what it does and its schema. And it goes through denied sovereignty, and it confronts communism, and it talks about human dignity and the prohibition and its association with transgression, and all sorts of things. It's a really interesting book, really interesting 2-volume work. Okay, next up is another interesting work by Bataille. It's called The Tale of Gilles de Rais. And Gilles de Rais, pardon, you don't pronounce the S. Gilles de Rais was a infamous murderer in the 15th century, in 15th century France. He killed women, children. And this book is an historical appraisal of this, not only through theory, but also through historical documents, records of the court hearings. There's a clerical court that handled this, and then there was a secular court, and then he goes into his execution. And Gilles de Rais is often confused with the myth of Bluebeard, and they're not the same. Gilles de Rais was a real man, and his murdering spree is a little bit different than what Bluebeard did. The myth or the story of Bluebeard, whereas Gilles de Rais was an actual historical nobleman in France who was a serial killer. And it's a very interesting work. Really, some outstanding details, and the court proceedings are very interesting, especially the clerical court and the way they try them on moral and theological grounds. It's kind of interesting how they juxtapose, and how there's a lot of discrepancy between the two. Because the clerical court, of course, was a little bit less strenuous on him because of his noble lineage. Because the church at the time was very much aligned with the nobility, and took great sums from the nobility. The nobility basically propped up the church to basically securitize their standard of living and their ability to escape law and certain when they transgressed it. And that's another interesting story. Okay, that's it for this edition. I thank you very much. I hope you're all having a great day. It's a beautiful day here, and I hope you all have a wonderful day too. Take care. Bye-bye.